Okay, let's do this. All right, welcome to session number 129 in Kevin Reed's A Course in Miracles. All right, just reading A Course in Miracles and trying to let it flow over us. All right, we are in chapter 16, entitled The Forgiveness of Illusions, and we today are working with section 3, Roman numeral 3, entitled The Reward of Teaching. Okay. In this section, Jesus is going to be comparing intellect with experience, to put it succinctly. So with that in mind, let's begin. We have already learned that everyone teaches and teaches all the time. You may have taught well, and you may not have learned how to accept the comfort of your teaching. If you will consider what you have taught and how alien it is to what you thought you knew, you will be compelled to realize that your teacher came from beyond your thought system. Therefore, he could look upon it fairly and perceive it was untrue. He must have done so from the basis of a very different thought system, and one with nothing in common with yours. For certainly, what he has taught and what you have taught through him have nothing in common with what you taught before he came. And the results have been to bring peace where there was pain, and suffering has disappeared to be replaced by joy. Right. He says, everyone teaches and teaches all the time. And the basic things we teach is that I am either connected to God or I am separate from God. We constantly teach those things. Okay? And we do that by the way we live, our actions, our words and actions. And he says, you may have taught well, and yet you may not have learned how to accept the comfort of your teaching. Right? That's the difference between the intellect and the experience. We can grasp this text intellectually, and sometimes that's what entices many people to read this, right? Because it does stir the intellect, right? And so you may understand it on that level, intellectually. But you don't have an experience of it. The experience of it would bring the comfort, right? That's what would bring the comfort of your teaching. Because if we had the experience of being one with God and one with everything, right, there would be that comfort. There would be no anxiety, there'd be no reason for defense, right? Be no guilt, no fear, only happiness. Right? And we would feel that comfortable tranquility. Okay? So if you will consider what you have taught and how alien it is to what you thought you knew, you will be compelled to realize that your teacher came from beyond your thought system. We can go around talking in terms like Jesus says, and whatever spiritual path that influences you. We can quote, what the Buddha purportedly says. We can quote Jesus. We can quote the great spiritual leaders from the Mohammedan traditions and all the Abrahamic religions, and Lao Tzu, and quote them all, he says, but, experiencing it is where it's at. All right? And once you experience, you realize how alien my words were to what my experience is, right? Because I was only grasping it intellectually. How alien it is to what you thought you knew, right? I thought I knew that we are one with God. We are one with everyone, right? There is only the one Son, the one mind. I can grasp that intellectually. But the experience, he says, it's totally alien to what you thought you knew. Right? And once you know that, once you get that experience, he says you're compelled to realize that your teacher came from beyond your thought system. Right? It's a completely different thought system. Right? And therefore he must look upon it fairly and perceive it was untrue. He must have done so from the basis of a very different thought system, and one which has nothing in common with yours. So the thought system of the one mind, the thought system of God, right, and his creations, right, is totally different. Has nothing in common with the thought system of those of us who believe we are separated. We're in the ego thought system. Right. For certainly what he has taught, right, which is our teacher, when we have the experience of having our perceptions changed, right, what he has taught and what you have taught through him have nothing in common with what you taught before he came. Right? So once we have our perceptions changed, things are totally different. Right? And you might have been a very nice person before that. Okay? But you will see that it's a totally different experience than what you thought it was. Right? And with it comes comfort. Right? Comfort and joy. Right? And the results have been to bring peace where there was pain. So once we have our perceptions changed, they are replaced with peace instead of pain. We can look around this world and there's so much pain everywhere you look. Right? Like that crazy game in the amusement parks they call whack-a-mole, where you take a little rubber hammer and up out of the holes these things pop up and you have to whack as many as you can. But they keep popping up. And that's what the instances of pain and cruelty in this world are like. Okay, it just keeps popping up, right? And we have to defend against that in one way or another, physically or emotionally, right? Psychologically, we have to defend against those things, right? And he says, so. For certainly what he has taught and what you have taught through him have nothing in common with what you taught before he came. And the results, so the results of joining with Holy Spirit, with Jesus, right, and having our perceptions changed, the results bring peace where there was pain, and suffering has disappeared to be replaced by joy. And that is what we teach by our very lives. Right? Paragraph 2, you may have taught freedom, but you have not learned how to be free. I said earlier By their fruits ye shall know them, and they shall know themselves. For it is certain that you judge yourself according to your teaching. The ego's teachings produce immediate results because its decisions are immediately accepted as your choice. And this acceptance means that you are willing to judge yourself accordingly. Cause and effect are very clear in the ego's thought system because all your learning has been directed toward establishing the relationship between them. And would you not have faith in what you have so diligently taught yourself to believe? Yet remember how much care you have exerted in choosing its witnesses and in avoiding those which spoke for the cause of truth and its effects. Right? So you may have taught freedom, but you have not learned how to be free. We might go around talking about individuality and freedom of this and freedom of that. And he says, but you don't know how to be free. Because he says you keep judging yourself by your ego decisions. Right? And I always have to chuckle when he says stuff like, I said earlier, which according to us was like 2,000 years ago. I said earlier, by their fruits ye shall know them, and they shall know themselves. All right? That's the idea of teaching. All right? What do you teach? What's your example? What kind of example are you giving? All right? How do you live? How do you present yourself to people? Are you happy? All right? Do you present yourself as being aware of your blissful nature? Okay, by their fruits you shall know them, and they shall know themselves. It's because it's certain that you judge yourself according to your teaching. So, if I'm teaching in an ego manner, all right, I judge myself accordingly, which means I judge myself as guilty and deserving of punishment, and about to get that punishment sooner or later. Right? Because the ego's teaching produces immediate results. Because its decisions are immediately accepted as your choice. Okay? That instant when I accepted the fact that I could be separated from God, I believed it. All right? That produced immediate results. Here we are, folks. All right? And as he says in several places in the book, we continue to make that choice, whether we're aware of it or not. The only thing we can be aware of is the fruits, right? The results of our choices, the effect of the choice. Right? The choice is the cause in the ego system. And the effect is that I believe I'm separated from God and I run around like a nut. Okay? The ego's teachings produce immediate results because its decisions are immediately accepted as your choice. And this acceptance means that you're willing to judge yourself accordingly. That means I'm willing to judge myself as guilty. I'm separate. I'm guilty. Okay? And that guilt becomes unbearable, really, and I have to project it, so it's you. And the world goes round and round with projected guilt. Right? I say in your everyday life, you can watch, you can see, you can hear the projection of guilt. It can't be me, it's you. Right? It gets repressed and projected because the ego counsels us. You'll feel much better if you get rid of your guilt by throwing it over there. And then you find a person, place, or thing to blame. Right? And these results are immediate of that choice for the ego. Right? Cause and effect are very clear in the ego's thought system. Still in paragraph 2. Because all your learning has been directed toward establishing the relationship between them. And you would not have faith in what you have so diligently taught you. He says, and would you not have faith in what you've so diligently taught yourself? We diligently have taught ourselves that we're separate and we're guilty. He said, so wouldn't you have faith in that? You've diligently taught yourself. All right? Yet remember how much care you have exerted in choosing its witnesses. Right? He says, you've taken great care in choosing the witnesses, right, to prove that you're separate, to prove that you're the innocent victim, right, to try to prove you're not guilty, all the while knowing deep down inside that you are, or feeling that way anyway, believing it. Right? It's not the truth. But we believe that. We've taught ourselves that, he's telling us. Right? He says, and you've taken great care in choosing its witnesses, all those people in our lives, right? And he says, you've taken great care in avoiding those which spoke for the cause of truth and its effects. Right? So we've been avoiding. Right? We avoid the Holy Spirit. We avoid true contact with Jesus. Because they speak of truth and the effects of truth. The effects of truth is that you're not guilty. You never left your Father. Okay? Paragraph 3, does not the fact that you have not learned what you have taught show you that you do not perceive the sonship as one? And does it not also show you that you do not regard yourself as one? For it is impossible to teach successfully wholly without conviction. And it is equally impossible that conviction be outside of you. You could never have taught freedom unless you did believe in it. And it must be that what you taught came from yourself. Yet this self you clearly do not know. And do not recognize, and you do not recognize it, even though it functions. What functions must be there. And it is only if you deny what it has done that you could possibly deny its presence. Okay? So he says, the fact that you have not learned what you have taught, it shows you that you have not accepted the sonship as one. You do not perceive the sonship as one. You do not have all your perceptions corrected to where all you see is oneness. Right? So you haven't learned what you have taught. I really think he's talking to me here, so watch it. So, does it not also show you that you do not regard yourself as one? Right? So what Jesus teaches here in the Course, like I said, we can grasp it intellectually, but there's something that we're withholding about the experience, that we're, I don't know, it's not withholding, we're just pushing it off. Right? We're avoiding it. Right? He says, because it's impossible to teach successfully. All right, so I talk about the oneness. All right, I talk about having perception changed and our connection with God, our connection to everything. But it's impossible to teach successfully without conviction. That means I have to be convinced of what I'm talking about. And really what that means, what convinces you except the experience? Okay? So, for it is impossible to teach successfully wholly without conviction. And it is equally impossible that conviction be outside of you. Right? This conviction, this convincing situation is not outside of you. It's not outside of me, which means it's in the mind. Okay? It's in the mind where all our perceptions come to be changed. Okay? And it is equally impossible that conviction be outside of you. You could never have taught freedom unless you did believe in it. Right? So there's a part of my mind that does believe in it. Right? And it must be that what you taught came from yourself. Right? So my urge to speak about this Course in Miracles, to read it and talk about it, and he says that urge is coming from yourself. Right? Yet this self you clearly do not know. And this self is the capital S, higher self. He says you clearly don't know it. And do not recognize it, even though it functions. Right? So my higher self is functioning. Right? It is coming through. But you're not aware of this self, this higher self. But think about what functions, because it's still functioning. What functions must be there. And it is only if you deny what it has done that you could possibly deny its presence. All right? You have experiences in your life, all right, where this higher self has come through you. Right? In thousands and thousands and millions of ways. Right? It fits the life that we have concocted for ourselves. Right? And it comes through you. Right? And it's only if you deny what it has done that you can try to deny its presence. Right? Sometimes you know. Oh, look at that. I didn't think of that. Right? Some people will even say, "Oh, that was a miracle." Right? But the miracle is having your perception changed and being in contact with that higher self, the higher self working through your mind. Right? Then in paragraph 4, Jesus says, this is a course in how to know yourself. Okay? Just think about that. It's a course in how to know yourself. You have taught what you are, but have not let what you are teach you. Right? You have been very careful to avoid the obvious and not to see the real cause and effect relationship that is perfectly apparent. Yet within you is everything you taught. What can it be that has not learned it? It must be this part that is really outside yourself, not by your own projection, but in truth. And it is this part that you have taken in that is not of you. What you accept into your mind does not really change it. Illusions are but beliefs in what is not there. And the seeming conflict between truth and illusion can only be resolved by separating yourself from the illusion and not from truth. All righty then. So it's a course in how to know myself. Right. He says, you've taught what you are. You talk about the oneness, my connection to God, my connection to Jesus. Right? The connection to the Holy Spirit, the memory of who I am. He says, but you have not let these symbols teach you. Right? Okay. I hear you. You have been very careful to avoid the obvious and not to see the real cause and effect. All right? Not to see the real cause and effect relationship that is perfectly apparent. God is the cause. The Son is the effect. He says it's perfectly apparent. You've not let yourself see the obvious. Right? You are the effect of God. Okay? And he says, so what can it be that has not learned this? It must be a part that is really outside yourself. Right? That's the ego. Right? The ego thought system is actually outside yourself. Right? Not by your own projection, but in truth. In truth, the ego thought system is not of you. I mean, it's not part of you. It's outside of you. It's not part of the mind. Okay? And it is this part that you have taken in that is not you. We've taken in this thought system. We've become a host to it. And he says, even though you've accepted the idea of separation as part of you, he says, it doesn't really change your mind. Your mind is still the same. Your mind is still connected to God. Your mind is still as powerful as God's. Right? So even though you've chosen to believe that you are small, right, and little and lacking something and all that ego stuff, he says it doesn't change who you really are. And these are illusions. He says illusions are but beliefs in what is not there. So all these things that I believe about myself in the ego's thought system, in this world, right? And I think a lot of us have experience in believing some horrible things about ourselves. He says that they're illusions. They are not there. And the seeming conflict between truth and illusion can only be resolved by separating yourself from the illusion, not from the truth. So this conflict we feel just in this human experience, this earthbound misfit, as Pink Floyd would say. All right, just a bunch of earthbound misfits. All right, the conflict. He says the way to resolve that is to remove yourself from the illusion, not from the truth. And the way we remove ourselves from the illusion is to bring our illusory thoughts and experiences to the right mind. And ask, help me to see correctly. Right? He's not talking about removing yourself from the life experience, okay? That doesn't work. It's not a remedy, okay? He's talking about having your perceptions changed. That's removing yourself from the illusion. Paragraph 5, he goes, your teaching has already done this. For For the Holy Spirit is part of you. Created by God, he left neither God nor his creation. Right? He is both God and you, as you are God and him together. For God's answer to the separation added more to you than you tried to take away. He protected both your creations and you together, keeping one with you, what you would exclude. And they will take the place of what you took in to replace them. They are quite real, as part of the self you do not know. They communicate to you through the Holy Spirit, and their power and gratitude to you for their creation they offer gladly to your teaching of yourself, who is their home. You who are host to God are also host to them, and what is not real was never there. Once again, a statement of the atonement principle. You did not leave the mind of God. You did not leave heaven, so to speak. You are not separated from God. Right? And the Holy Spirit is part of you. Right? The Holy Spirit, the memory of who you are. Right? Created by God. Right? The Holy Spirit left neither God nor his creation. So the Holy Spirit is still with God and with you. Right? These are symbols, remember, trying to help us understand the experience, try to not even understand the experience, just to have the experience. Let the awareness arise in our mind, and that he is both God and you, as you are God and him together. Right? Can you? It's the, they have to use words to describe the experience, but that's the experience we are waiting for. Right? And it's what he says. The experience we avoid is to realize that you are God and the Holy Spirit together. Right? For God's answer to the separation added more to you than you tried to take away. Right? God's answer to the separation has never happened. Right? And he says, you tried to take away a little bit of power or whatever you thought it was. But, God's answer to that gives you more than you tried to take away. All right? So God protected both your creations and you together. Remember, your creations are the extensions of love. And that is what you do when you are connected to God. God extended, and there you are. And you do the same. And those are your creations. Right? So the Holy Spirit didn't leave God, and he didn't leave your creations. Right? And he is both God and you. Right? You try to grasp that. Just as you are God in him. For God's answer to the separation added more than you tried to take away. He protected both your creations and you, keeping one with you, what you would exclude. All right? So it's one with us. Our creations are one with us. Right? And we are one with God. Right? He says, and the Holy Spirit keeps that with us. and they will take place of what you took in to replace them. So what we took in was the belief in separation. We believe we're separated from that. Okay. And the Holy Spirit will stay with us. Okay. Let me see where. Sorry for being lost here. And they will take the place of what you took in. So my creations will take the place of what I took in, which is the belief in separation. Right. They are quite real, as part of the self you do not know. Right. And their power and gratitude to you for their creation, they offer gladly to your teaching of yourself, who is their home. So the Holy Spirit and your creations offer gratitude to you, right? Because you are their home. They communicate to you, your creations communicate to you through the Holy Spirit. You who are host to God are also host to them. You are also the host to your own creations, the extensions of love, the extensions of everything there is. Right? Happiness, bliss, comfort, security. Right? All that in the experience. Right? You who are host to God are also host to them. For nothing real has ever left the mind of its creator. And what is not real was never there. Right? Right? Nothing real has ever left the mind of the creator. Right? So what we experience are illusions. Right? The theme of this chapter, the forgiveness of illusions. And the forgiveness of illusions is having our perceptions corrected. Right? For nothing real has ever left the mind of its creator. And what is not real never was. Right? Nothing unreal exists, as it says in the introduction to the course. Right? Nothing unreal exists, therefore therein lies the peace of God. Okay? Nothing real can be threatened, he says. Nothing real can be threatened. So whatever is in the mind of God cannot be threatened. And he says, and actually, nothing unreal exists. There is nothing outside of the mind of God that is real. Right? And what is not real was never there. Right? And in that awareness lies the peace of God. Okay. Paragraph 6. You are not two selves in conflict. What is beyond God? If you who hold him and whom he holds are the universe, all else must be outside, where nothing is. Right? You have taught this, and from far off in the universe, yet not beyond yourself. The witnesses to your teaching have gathered to help you learn. Their gratitude has joined with yours and God's to strengthen your faith in what you taught. For what you taught is true. Alone, you stand outside your teaching and apart from it. But with them, you must learn that you but taught yourself and learned from the conviction you shared with them. Okay? So he says, you're not two selves in conflict, right? It's because there is nothing beyond God. There's nothing outside the mind of God. This is an illusion. Okay? Don't let that scare you. Or if it does, just ask for help with that. Okay? It is frightening to think that this is an illusion. All right? Because this will go out of its way to prove to you that it is real. Okay? Alrighty then. But you're not two selves in conflict. What is beyond God? If you who hold him and whom he holds are the universe, all else must be outside, where nothing is. All right? He's once again saying you are God. God is you. All right? The only difference is that God is the original source. Right? But other than that, you are the same. There's no place, there's no gap, right, where God ends and you begin. Right? He says, and everything outside of that is not real. Right? Now, it doesn't mean to go around denying, that you don't need breakfast. Right? I don't need to eat anymore. It's not real. Right? Don't be silly. Just bring all your beliefs to the right mind where the Holy Spirit is. The Holy Spirit who is God and you. The memory of who you are. And just rest in that space and be willing to have your perceptions changed. All right? And then everything joins with you, that willingness. All right? All your creations which continue. At one point, Jesus says your other life continues, which is your true life in the mind of God. Right? Your creations join with you. Right? And they will help you learn. Right? He says you've taught, right? And you're getting close to the truth. And the witnesses to your teaching have gathered to help you learn. Right? The witnesses to my teaching, right? My creations, have gathered to help me learn about myself, to help me bridge that gap between intellect and experience. Okay? And their gratitude has joined with yours and God's to strengthen your faith in what you taught. So as I have my perceptions changed and I live my life, and my life gets different, as Ken would say, it gets to the point where there's no more, you don't walk down the street with that furrowed brow, and there's a tranquility about you. That means your faith in what you're teaching is getting stronger. All right? For what you taught is true. All right? Alone, you stand outside your teaching and apart from it. But with them, which is the help of God, the Holy Spirit, your creations, all right? You must learn that you but taught yourself and learned from the conviction you shared with them. All right? Sooner or later, we will learn that we are teaching ourselves. Okay? And it's funny, just the other day, I was coming home, maybe in the elevator or something, and I had that phrase that I said, that statement that I make to people sometimes, that I have the experience of talking to myself. And this is what Jesus is talking about. That sooner or later you will realize that you are teaching yourself. Right? And it's wonderful. That's the idea of giving and receiving. Okay? And that will get stronger and stronger, and it will grow in awareness. You'll grow in the awareness of that. Okay? Paragraph 7. This year you will begin to learn and make learning commensurate with your teaching. All right? So your learning will equal your teaching. All right? You have chosen this by your own willingness to teach. Right? Though you seem to suffer for it, the joy of teaching will yet be yours. For the joy of teaching is in the learner, who offers it to the teacher in gratitude and shares it with him. As you learn, your gratitude to yourself, who teaches you what he is, will grow and help you honor him. And you will learn his power and strength and purity and love him as his Father does. His kingdom has no limits and no end, and there is nothing in him that is not perfect and eternal. All this is you, and nothing outside this is you. Right? He's telling you flat out that the kingdom has no limits and no end. And there is nothing in him that is not perfect and eternal. And he says, and this is you. All this is you. All right? Your true self. Eternal. Perfect. All right? And nothing outside of you is you. All right? Nothing outside of you is you. He says, this year begin to learn, and making learning commensurate with teaching. All right? And you've chosen this. You've chosen to take a spiritual path. That's the willingness, right? The willingness to see that there's a better way. There is something else besides this nutty world, the crazy experiences that we have. There's something else besides that. Right? And the joy of teaching, that's the reward. The joy of teaching is in the learner. Right? And we are both. Right? We are both. And the learner who offers it to the teacher in gratitude. All right? So that giving and receiving become simultaneous. As you learn your gratitude to yourself, your higher self, who teaches you what he is, your gratitude will grow and help you to honor your higher self. Right? You will recognize it and you will love it. And you will learn his power and strength and purity and love him as his Father does. So you will learn about yourself, your true self. Right? You'll learn about your power and strength and purity. And you will love yourself as your Father does. His kingdom has no limits and no end. And there is nothing in him that is not perfect and eternal. All this is you. Right? And there is nothing outside of this. And nothing outside of this is you. That's the only thing you are, is all that, perfection. So, paragraph 8. To your most holy self is all praise due for what you are and for what he is who created you as you are. Sooner or later, must everyone bridge the gap he imagines exists between his selves. Each one builds this bridge, which carries him across the gap as soon as he is willing to expend some little effort on behalf of bridging it. His little efforts are powerfully supplemented by the strength of heaven and by the united will of all who make heaven what it is, being joined within it. And so the one who would cross over is literally transported there. Okay? So he's telling you, to your most holy self, all right, that part of you that exists, the part of you that is there, your most holy self, all praise is due for what you are and for what he who created you as you are. For you and God, all praise is due. All right? And he says, and sooner or later, everyone bridges the gap that he imagines exists between his selves. All right? So there must be some kind of gap between who I think I am and who Jesus is telling me I am. All right? He says, sooner or later you bridge that gap. Everyone will bridge that gap. All right? And just to give you a sneak preview of the end, everyone has bridged that gap already. It's just that we're living in the memories. Okay? Fodder for another class. All right? Remember Plato said all learning is remembering, right? I think it was Plato or Socrates. One of those wise guys. Sooner or later, everyone must bridge the gap he imagines exists between his selves. Each one builds the bridge, which carries him across the gap as soon as he is willing. And that's all. Just remember a couple of sessions ago, he said, all you need to do is nod. Just nod to the atonement. Just give that little willingness. Help me. All right? As soon as he is willing to expend some little effort on behalf of bridging the gap. All right? So that little effort is, I'm willing to see correctly. Okay? His little efforts are powerfully supplemented by the strength of heaven. When we are willing to have our perceptions changed and corrected, he says, all the power of heaven is behind you. They supplement your effort. Right? They're supplemented by the strength of heaven and by the united will of all who make heaven what it is, being joined within it. And so, the one who would cross over is literally transported there. All right? You don't need to climb uphill or nothing. All right? We be willing to have our perceptions changed. All right? And we will be transported across the gap between who we think we are and who we really are. And we will have that experience of who we really are and what it's all about, Alfie. Right? Your bridge is builded stronger than you think, and your foot is planted firmly on it. Right? Have no fear that the attraction of those who stand on the other side and wait for you will not draw you safely across, for you will come where you would be and where yourself awaits you. All right? Your bridge is stronger than you think. All right? A friend of mine, we were talking about light, and she suggested that she was just in the spark stage. This is Jesus assuring her and all of us that your bridge to the awareness of who you really are, is stronger than you think. And your foot is planted firmly on it. You are on the bridge. All right? You are on your way to remembering who you are. Right? And have no fear that the attraction of those who stand on the other side and wait for you will not draw you safely across. He says, don't worry about it. Your creations, all your loving thoughts, will draw you across. And he says, without a doubt, don't fear that they're going to fail at that. All your loving thoughts are going to bring you across. Right? You will be transported. Right? For you will come where you would be. Eventually, you will become aware of where you are, of where you would be, right? And where yourself awaits you. Right? Eventually, for you will come where you would be and where yourself awaits you, your highest self, right? Your most holy self. You will come to know that. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. All righty then. So, the reward of teaching is that it becomes stronger and your awareness of who you are becomes stronger and stronger if we join with Holy Spirit, all right, who is both God and you. You are that, as Gangaji would say. All right. So, let us end it there for the time being. All right. I thank you for the opportunity. All right. And got nothing else clever to say, so we'll end it there. All righty then. Love you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.